Hello, and welcome to In Focus. I'm glad you're with us. Today, we look at how global security is being shaped not only on the battlefield, but also behind closed doors, through diplomacy, intelligence, and strategic alliances. In this episode, the European Union raises serious concerns over internal security risks linked to Hungary's leadership, including Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, while Ukraine and the United States report progress in high-level talks aimed at securing a lasting peace. Europe is facing a new phase of confrontation, one that goes beyond conventional warfare. Amid growing hybrid threats, questions are now being raised about trust inside the European Union, with Hungary and Prime Minister Viktor Orbán at the center of new concerns.
In the European Union, Vladimir Putin has been named one of the main culprits of the migration crisis in Europe. European politicians and intelligence officers have repeatedly pointed out that Russia uses migrants as a weapon, trying to destabilize Europe through their influx, writes the Moscow Times. The EU Commissioner for Migration, Magnus Brunner, spoke bluntly about Russia's involvement in the migration crisis in an interview with Financial Times, stating that Putin is always behind all this.
Vladimir Putin is the biggest driver of migration to Europe due to his role in stoking conflict over the past decade. It's always Putin who is involved in those big migration movements. It's always Vladimir Putin, Magnus Brunner, European Commissioner for Internal Affairs and Migration, in an interview with Financial Times.
Russia systematically uses hybrid attacks against Western countries. It is not only about migration pressure, but also about sabotage, cyberattacks, and interference in the internal politics of European states. According to the Washington Post, Hungarian Foreign Minister Péter Szijjártó may have passed information to Moscow during breaks at EU meetings. This has caused serious concern in Brussels. In response, the European Union has begun to limit the flow of confidential data to Budapest and is discussing sensitive issues in a narrow circle of allies, excluding Hungary from some negotiations. At the same time, the EU is demanding explanations from Budapest regarding possible contacts with Russia, and in the circle of political opponents of Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, they have already announced plans to investigate the foreign minister's ties with the Kremlin. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk emphasized that such suspicions of information leaks to Russia have existed for a long time.
The news that Orbán's people inform Moscow about EU Council meetings in every detail shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. We've had our suspicions about that for a long time. That's one reason why I take the floor only when strictly necessary and say just as much as necessary. Donald Tusk, Prime Minister of Poland, on X.
Along with political influence, Moscow is also intensifying sabotage on the territory of Europe. In Czechia, authorities are investigating possible Russian involvement in a fire at a defense enterprise. According to Reuters, the version of deliberate arson is being considered as part of a broader campaign of pressure on countries that support Ukraine. Germany is also recording an increase in similar threats. According to analysts, Russia has intensified sabotage, disinformation, and espionage, trying to divert Berlin's attention from supporting Ukraine and sowing internal instability.
Since 2022, the Kremlin has significantly intensified its hybrid activities against Germany. This involves a comprehensive strategy combining cyberattacks, disinformation, espionage, and sabotage aimed at weakening support for Ukraine and undermining EU unity. Elections also remain a key area of influence. Similar trends have previously been reported by Swedish intelligence services, indicating an expansion of the Kremlin's hybrid aggression across Europe. In these conditions, the creation of a comprehensive system for responding to hybrid threats becomes crucial. From a publication by the Center for Countering Disinformation under the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine.
In response, the European Union is tightening security measures. Coordination of special services is being strengthened, mechanisms to counter disinformation are being created, and sanctions against Russian structures and individuals involved in hybrid operations are being expanded. Particular attention is paid to protecting elections and energy infrastructure. EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Kaja Kallas, at a conference on countering foreign information manipulation and interference, called on EU countries to remember the existence of the democracy shield and to start using it.
Our current list includes many people and businesses spreading propaganda and conspiracy theories on Russia's invasion of Ukraine, as well as anti-Ukraine and anti-Western narratives. But as fast as we are currently applying the sanctions, perpetrators can adapt. So we must do more. With many elections coming up in Europe this year and the next, we have to muster the political courage to actually use our regulations and the tools we have developed to counter threats in our democracies. The Democracy Shield was developed for exactly this purpose, to bring all of the various angles together.
By 2026, Russian propaganda has become the main tool for disintegrating European democracy from within, using trends of expanding sabotage and influence on elections to increase instability. Europe is forced to adopt a from shield to sword approach and expand the introduction of sanctions, control of artificial intelligence used by the aggressor, and begin active campaigns to counter Russia's negative narrative. Reported by Maria Zheludchenko, UATV News.
While Europe strengthens its internal defenses, diplomatic efforts to end the war are also moving forward. Ukraine and the United States are working to turn coordination into concrete results, with a focus on security, stability, and accountability.
The Ukrainian side described the two-day talks held in Florida between Ukraine and the United States as successful. Progress has been achieved in aligning positions on security guarantees, military cooperation, and prisoner exchanges. This was stated by Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine Rustem Umerov following the meeting.
We continued discussing key issues and the next steps within the negotiation track. Particular attention was paid to aligning approaches for further progress toward practical results. We thank the United States for its engagement and consistent work in advancing the process. Rustem Umerov, Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, on X.
President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky, in his turn, emphasized that for Ukraine, real security guarantees are important, guarantees that will ensure a reliable peace for Ukraine and all of Europe. It is very important that there is no need to return to war in months or years. According to him, there are also agreements on new prisoner exchanges.
There are signals that exchanges may continue, and this would be really good news and confirmation that diplomacy is working. We hope this will succeed. Overall, the situation remains quite transparent. Putin does not want to end the war. But the main thing is what the world wants. We all together must do everything possible and will continue to do everything possible to end this war.
Progress in the talks was also noted by U.S. President Special Representative Steve Witkoff. He welcomed the continuation of cooperation and noted that the goal is to resolve issues that still remain unanswered. The diplomat also emphasized the importance of achieving peace in Ukraine, as this can ensure global stability.
The constructive talks built on yesterday's progress and focused on key points to define a durable and dependable security framework for Ukraine, as well as critical humanitarian efforts in the region. Steve Witkoff, United States Special Envoy for Peace Missions, on X.
The last round of trilateral talks between Russia, Ukraine, and the United States took place in Geneva on the 17th to 18th of February. Its result was a prisoner exchange that took place on the 5th to 6th of March. Then 502 Ukrainians returned home. It was expected that the parties would meet again in early March in Abu Dhabi, but in the end the consultations were postponed. President of Ukraine noted that the decision to postpone was made at the initiative of the American side due to the U.S.-Israeli operation in the Middle East that began on February 28th. But despite this, the United States continues to support Ukraine, stated NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. He said that the United States provides critically important intelligence support and ensures the supply of weapons, working together with Europeans to ensure Ukraine's strong position in the fight against Russian aggression.
I know that he is, with his team, with Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff and Marco Rubio, they are constantly working with the Ukrainians to put maximum pressure on the Russians to come to a deal. I know, I spoke an hour and a half last week with President Zelensky in London. He wants to get the deal done. And we have to make sure that we also take this to the Russians to make sure that they are willing to play ball. It is the president putting that pressure together with the Europeans. But again, he has to balance all these different interests.
The talks in the USA and support for Ukraine are yielding positive results. But at the same time, easing sanctions on Russia provides the Kremlin with additional revenues. The United States temporarily allowed the sale of Russian oil that is now already on tankers at sea. Washington justified this step by the global rise in oil prices due to the escalation of the conflict in Iran and the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, which effectively paralyzed oil exports from the region.
Revenues give Russia a sense of impunity and the ability to continue the war. That is why pressure must continue and sanctions must work. Russia's shadow fleet must not feel safe in European waters or anywhere else. Tankers that serve the war budget can and must be stopped and blocked, not just let go. I thank every leader who makes such decisions. This is what brings a dignified peace closer. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine, on Telegram.
Strengthening sanctions, military aid, and a united position of allies remain the key conditions for achieving a just peace. Otherwise, Russia will continue to use pauses and pressure as an opportunity to prolong the war and build up resources for new aggression. Reported by Karina Lalayan, UATV News.
Ukraine continues to prove that strength is not only measured on the battlefield, but also in resilience, strategy, and unity with its partners. And as these efforts move forward, one thing is clear: lasting peace depends on consistent pressure, strong alliances, and clear principles. Thank you for watching In Focus. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and stay with us for more updates on the stories that matter.